Welcome to the Hot Girl School, the podcast where we redefine confidence and go way beyond the reflection you see in the mirror.
We're your hosts, Lauren and Danielle, here to empower you to embrace your inner radiance because confidence is so much more than looks.
Whether you're strutting into an event or conquering the boardroom, join us as we explore topics like self-love, inner strength, and owning your unique journey to confidence.
So grab your favorite drinky and turn up that volume because you're about to unleash your true potential. When we begin a new romantic relationship, we are on our best behavior. We are excited for the potential the new relationship has and hoping it will be different than the last ones. As time moves forward and we become more and more comfortable, our significant other can be on the receiving end of our wrath. On top of it, people like to hang out with friends who enjoy bashing their significant others, and it becomes normal to fight, talk smack, and be unhappy. So, what is a loving, kind, and respectful way to treat your significant other? And how do you go about changing the way you treat him? Being mindful, intentional, and purposeful with your words, actions, and tone of voice, and not having a set of expectations as you go into the relationship. So, how do you treat your significant other, my girl?
Ooh, we are getting into it. So I think we should start with a little disclaimer.
Let's go.
So I think if you're in an unhealthy relationship, it is because of one of two reasons. You are either not happy with yourself, you have work to do internally on your self-worth, your confidence, your self-love, or you're just not with the right person.
100, that is gold. That is gold.
Bingo, we nailed it.
Yeah, because when you're in a happy relationship, you have to have the happy relationship in order to even compare to a toxic or an unhappy relationship. But sometimes it just doesn't feel like enough.
Yeah.
And even if it's healthy, you're just like, okay, maybe we're just getting through. You know, just because you've been in a relationship for a certain amount of time does not mean it's time to take the next step. And I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the time
they get
aspect.
on the timeline of it. Well, I also think too, I mean, from experience with girlfriends, I don't know one person in my life that hasn't been through the hard relationship, the toxic relationship. It sucks because you want to avoid it, right? But it's also part of the journey of learning what works for you and figuring out like how to find that perfect match.
Yes, I feel like that's the broken road that leads you to the person.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so in order to understand a healthy relationship, let's understand what a poor relationship is. How do I want to say that?
Like how not to be in it, not to do relationships.
All the reasons that you might have issues in your relationship. So we have unresolved personal issues, lack of communication, unrealistic expectations, a power dynamic such as jealousy, stress, burnout, lack of empathy, emotional immaturity, cultural differences, neglect of the relationship, lack of self-awareness, and then a toxic dynamic. So I know that's like 10 to 12.
Yeah.
What would you say your two top ones are that could maybe mitigate the others?
Sure. I mean, I think first and foremost, like doing the work on yourself, like getting good with you, because no one is going to fill all the holes. You have to figure out how to fill those for yourself in order to be truly happy in a relationship. And with that comes a lot of work. And I think the second one is by far communication. Communication can solve a lot of the things that you just mentioned. In fact.
It really can.
Yeah.
And it's learning what it means to communicate. There's so many books out there. Obviously, there's YouTube University. There's so much free information. You just have to take the time to dive into it and understand, because learning how to communicate completely changes the game. And I've given you this example before when I'm like rushing in the door, absolutely starving. I know I'm going to snap. And I'm like, I can't talk to you right now because I'm starving. And he's like, okay, sit down. Let me make you food. He just takes care of it for me.
When you just explain like, hey, when I am hungry, I get hangry. Truly, it's a real thing.
Yes,
and I don't ever want to hurt your feelings because of it. So we are going to be on the same page that if I come in and say that, we're not talking anything serious. We're feeding me, and then we're back to good.
Yeah. The fuel gives you the brain power to like reassess where we're at. And you're like, oh, okay, I think that actually wasn't that serious. I'm actually fine.
But think about it, because there's probably been experiences, which is why you now communicate that, where you didn't and it didn't go well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's Communication is everything. And it's like anything. Once you have that reinforcement that I spoke something, I spoke my mind and it turned out well, you want to keep doing it because you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh shit, that made things easy.
Well, it reinforces it,
There's no
right?
fight. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
easy. I just labeled everything that you need to know about me and where I'm at in this moment. And you can do something with that information, like solve my problem. Thank you.
Well, and I think, we're around the holidays. It's almost Thanksgiving. We've got Christmas, New Year's, all those things. And I think that during this time, a lot of people who maybe aren't in a relationship are looking for one or settling for things or going back to an ex that they know is bad for them because they don't want to be lonely around the holidays. And that is if you're nodding your head right now, you're listening, you're like, yeah, that's me. Shit. You need to work on your self-worth, and when you're going through those experiences, it's teaching you. It's a lesson there for you to learn to love yourself more and
Mhm.
to have more respect for yourself, to not put up with shit.
And we have part 1 and part 2 on our page to go listen to how to work on yourself, how to trust
Yeah.
yourself. And those are huge because you need that confidence to show up whole in a
Yeah.
relationship, not rely on the other person to pick up all your sad pieces,
Yep.
which sadly we're kind of taught with all the princess movies,
Well,
as much as I love them.
yeah, and there's so much that goes into figuring out your self-worth, and it goes back to like childhood stuff
Mhm.
and how you observed relationships. What was your parents' marriage like? Were they divorced? Did your mom date around? Did your dad date around? Like, though, all those experiences play part into you developing your self-worth when it comes to relationships.
And you mimic what you know.
100%. So it's,
So
how do you unlearn, right? Or rewire is a better way of how I like to think of it, is how do I reframe that experience, and really just becoming aware of the toxicity and then going, I don't want that anymore. Like, that's a part of the healing journey. It sounds so simple, but the
Mhm.
awareness to it
Yeah.
is a huge first step. So if you already have that, you're on the right track.
Yeah, and knowing your boundaries, what are you willing to tolerate and what are you willing to not tolerate? Kind of maybe go by the 80-20 rule. If he treats you great 80% of the time and the 20% is like drains you, that's probably not the right 80-20 mix.
Yeah. Or it could be, I mean, in a healthy relationship, like, nothing's ever going to be perfect, right? But you should feel, for the most part, excited around that person. You're going to have your days, you're going to have your tiffs, but you shouldn't feel shitty around them regularly.
Absolutely. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we need to add to that?
No, I mean, I think, like, definitely if you're feeling like you're on a journey of, I need to work on myself, check out those episodes. There's tons of podcasts and books that can help with it. But just know that if you keep searching for this thing or getting into a new relationship and the same patterns keep happening, that is actually a you problem.
Mm-hmm.
As hard as that, like, harsh as that may feel,
Mm-hmm.
it's taking that, like, hard look in the mirror and going, all right, I got to make some changes. And that's when the magic starts happening.
Yes, because you will keep attracting the same person if you don't
Mm-hmm.
fix it. And it will show up in different masks, but at the core of it, it's all the same. So then the
Totally.
question is, right? And even working on yourself with a little bit of communication change
Yeah.
will help, because a toxic person or an unhappy person isn't willing to go through the change. They're
Yep.
not willing to partake. And that's maybe a sign that that person's not for you. Like, if you decide that you want to be better, go for it.
Don't settle.
You don't need
Don't
somebody
settle, my
else's
girls.
permission. Okay, so now that we have a little bit of an understanding of an unhealthy relationship, let's talk about the profile of a healthy relationship. Open communication, mutual respect, trust and honesty, equality, partnership, healthy conflict resolution, support and encouragement, emotional and physical intimacy, individuality, independence, fun, joy, shared values, and goals.
Such a good list.
Such a good list. And my disclaimer for this section, if you have one of these, they all fall into place.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have one and the other one, it completely shatters the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking about how much I love my husband.
I know. I know. As I was preparing for this, it was such a flashback to go through my shittiest relationship that I always refer to. And it was like this walk down memory lane
Yeah.
and a little bit of disbelief that I was willing to put up with that stuff for so long. But it's such a slow burn and it happens over time, the toxicity, that when you are being roped into it, you don't quite see it. And then to do the research for like the now part of a healthy relationship and how many examples I want to give. And like, we just want everybody to find their person. I want everybody to be in a happy, healthy
Yeah. Everybody
relationship.
deserves that.
They do. And that unconditional love, maybe we start with that.
Yeah.
It's such a good topic. You know, unconditional love is not treating somebody any way you want and they still love you. That's not what unconditional love is, which I do think that some people think that.
Totally. And that's why they're in a toxic relationship.
Correct.
Right.
Because they just keep bashing the person in and thinking, oh, they're going to love me no matter what.
And if I love them harder, or if I do this, like it'll turn around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is not unconditional love.
No. What would you say, or what is your experience with unconditional love?
I mean, unconditional love is like, there's so many examples, but like I'll give you one. It's, being comfortable in your pajamas and you're like not having your teeth brushed, like having bad breath and still giving like a good morning kiss anyway. Like that's like a very small example of it, right? I think when you're sick, like caring for your significant other, even if it's an inconvenience for you. Like we just yesterday, my husband and I had planned to go to the dealership to get some stuff done on our car because we're going on a trip. I needed like tire rotation, oil change, that whole thing. And they totally messed up the appointment. It wasted 2 hours of my day. I had other stuff to do. So I called my husband and was like, hey, is there any chance you can take care of this now? And he's like, yes, I got you. Like that's an example. That's a small example of he understood what the rest of my day looked like and he stepped up to make it happen.
Yeah, it's doing
even though it was an inconvenience to his plans for his day.
Absolutely.
But he understood how big of an inconvenience it would be for the rest of my day if he didn't step up.
Yeah.
And I think like meeting each other there, not keeping score is a really big one for unconditional love. And when you love somebody, you want to do stuff for them. You want to support them. You want to make their life easier and you want them to feel your love.
Yes. And I think that ties back into communication and resolving your own personal trauma so you can take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And we were talking before this, which we're going to go on a quick tangent here. How does this work if somebody is dealing with an ex? Because this leads into how you treat your significant other when there's unconditional love.
Yeah.
Versus how you treat them if it's an unhealthy relationship. Can you think of anything?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I have a girlfriend that just went through the craziest thing and I'm like, I love your man. He is awesome.
Tell me.
So her significant other went on a trip and ran into an ex, a college ex, like somebody that, there was love there at one point and things like that. And what's crazy is it was like 20 years ago.
Oh,
and
still hanging on?
Yeah. Well, I think just on her part. Okay. And basically to keep it pretty simple, she needed closure and asked for a conversation. And him being an awesome man was like, oh my gosh, like if that happened to my daughter, I would want the man to give her the closure that she needed.
That is
okay,
so
which
sweet.
is like beautiful, right? It's like, man, like not a lot of guys think that way. So, but obviously, you're talking to an ex from a long time, there, history, but it's like, that's kind of strange that it pops up for over so many years. And anyway, what he did is he told my girlfriend, like, hey, this is what happened. I want to be transparent with you. Want to make sure you're okay with it. This is why I think I should have the conversation.
And he's saying this to his wife.
To his wife.
Okay.
Yes. And his wife is supportive. Like another example of unconditional love, right? And trust in that it's a really healthy, good relationship. A lot of people would have deleted the messages or had the phone call behind the back, right? And he didn't. He was transparent about it. And that communication made it okay, because heaven forbid, they go to a game a year from now and they run into that same person, right? And then it comes out, then it's a huge problem. But like, that's a tough conversation to have with your significant other, right? You don't know how they're going to take it. And I was blown away by how amazing the communication was.
Yeah. That's nipping it in the bud.
Yeah.
Getting out from it so that in the future, if something does pop up, there's no excuses, there's no backtracking, there's no, oh, I should have told you. That's what breaks the
Well, that's what makes
trust.
it, and then that's when your wheels start spinning. That's when your thoughts,
Mhm.
you start negative spiral, going like, well, what the heck? Why is he in touch with somebody from so long ago? And that doesn't make any sense.
The
And
brain runs.
yeah,
So
but just bam, this is what's happening. And
correct.
I was like, that is beautiful.
That is the perfect example. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Of an unconditional love because the wife was supportive
Yep.
instead of getting nasty. Well, who is she? And da 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 da. Let me
Yeah.
look at her. Like, she was just like, okay, cool. Tell me how the conversation goes.
But also, like, that huge sign of a healthy
It's
relationship.
he felt safe to go to
Yeah.
her to have the conversation. This
Yep.
is like,
And that's how there's going to be, like, my husband and I have had hard conversations over
yeah.
the years, but they were conversations. They weren't fights. They
Mhm.
were, let's get to the bottom of it. And we know that we can talk to each other about anything.
And that's like a great segue into problem solving, which is one of the key points of being in a healthy
Yeah.
relationship. An unhealthy relationship points the finger. There's too much blame involved, and they're
Yeah.
focused on what the other person did wrong. Of course, they're not taking responsibility for anything. But the healthy relationship doesn't blame each other. Okay, this happened. How do we resolve it? And how do we do it together? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that is,
Like, solution driven,
yeah.
like, and even just being able to, and especially early on as you're getting to know each other and you're discovering the things that, like, are triggers for you and things like that, it's so important to just say it and have the conversation, because then there's the awareness, kind of like your hangry example.
Mhm.
Then there's the awareness and you know each other better. It deepens your connection and it creates a safe space for when the next hard thing comes up.
Correct. The chaos is curbed through communication, through love. You feel seen, you're
Yeah.
acknowledged. You just took care of my problem. I didn't even have to ask because you wanted to. You wanted to
Yeah.
make sure I was better. So, the only disclaimer on this side that I have is that I really want to make sure that people know. I wish somebody had told me this when I had healed. Getting into a healthy relationship after a toxic relationship is boring.
Mm,
It feels very boring. You find your love and your joy and your excitement both in small moments of, like, maybe inside jokes and laughing
yeah.
together, or going out and doing something, travel. But when you're in the chaotic relationship, it's driven through fighting, gaslighting, screaming at each other. And that's where you feel loved because you're just getting attention. It's like desperation for any sort of attention.
Hmm.
Versus in a healthy relationship, you feel loved because you're having a conversation about the future. You're like, damn, you love me. You want to talk about the future? Okay, what are we doing with our money?
Yeah.
Like, that's how you feel when it's healthy.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
No, I think that's so important because you almost get addicted
Yes.
to the highs and lows of the toxicity. So I feel like that's so good. I want to repeat what you said, is that if you have healed or you are on a healing journey and you do get into a healthy relationship, it may feel boring to you
Mm-hmm.
at first. And, like, write that down. It's such a good ninja tip,
Oh my gosh.
because if you're feeling that, it's a really good sign
Yeah.
that you're on the right track.
It's peace.
And you need to figure out the right questions to, like, sit with and ask yourself in those moments, because that is a test from God, from the universe, from whatever you connect with in that regard. It is a test, like, are you ready to stop repeating those bad habits? Are you ready for something better?
And being grateful. You wanted this one day. You wanted to find your peaceful person who is healthy.
Yeah.
And then you get it and you're like, I'm bored.
Well, and the I'm bored part, really what's going on there is self-sabotage. And that
Mm-hmm.
has to do with you needing more work on your self-worth, because you're self-sabotaging or creating that chaos because of that dopamine hit or that adrenaline rush that came from it in the past. But really, it's not getting you the outcome that you desire.
No. And
So
what you're
it's a
going
yeah.
slippery slope, is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, it's a sign that you have some more work to do on yourself, which ties back to, like, where we started, right? Is to really unlock that magic relationship, you hold the keys.
Yeah.
The keys are in you.
Yeah.
It's not the other person. It's not always that. It's like you getting right with you first is going to allow you to have a beautiful, healthy relationship.
You will be rewarded for the work you do on yourself. It's no easy journey. You will fumble, stumble, scrape your knees, be sad that you're self-sabotaging because you
Yeah.
can now see what you're doing. But when that right person shows up and you are able to just totally be yourself and they love you for who you are, even in your darkest moments, that's what you should be rooting for and
100.
wanting to
And
find.
that's part of unconditional love is we all have traumas. We all
Mhm.
have been through hard things. We all have a past. So being able to share them safely and have that person still love you back or give you the hug or say, I'm so sorry that you went through that. That must have been tough, and really mean it and
Mhm.
be there. It's almost like going back and hugging the inner child, or going back and hugging, the teenager or the young 20-year-old version of you where you're like, shit, I made mistakes. Why did I put up with that stuff? And that's healing. That's unconditional love.
Woohoo! Fire right there. Okay, let's move on to something more fun. Let's talk about sex.
Ooh, sexy
What do
time.
you think is a healthy amount of times to have sex a week?
I would say like 3 to 5 times.
Yeah, I
Three to
agree
five
with
times a
that.
week.
Did
Yeah.
you know that not having sex can cause frustrations in the marriage and you don't even
I mean,
know?
yeah.
I, I don't think a lot of people do. I think people let the amount of time that they have sex just continue to build. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's been like 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
Yeah.
a month. And then
Yeah.
it's like almost awkward to go back and have sex. I don't know. This is what I've heard from other girlfriends.
Yeah. Same.
And I'm like, okay, but like whatever you do, if you do it consistently, whether it's going to the gym
Yeah.
or having sex with your person, either way, the more you do it, the more you want it.
100%. And if you haven't had sex in a while, there's something else going on that
Mm-hmm.
you need to, there's a deeper issue that needs to be discussed, but also like maybe have sex first and then discuss it.
Here, a glass of wine. Get in the
Yeah.
mood.
I mean, intimacy is such a big part of a relationship. And if it's not it's a ripple effect of other shit that's going to be not good in your
Oh,
relationship.
yeah. And it's a sad spiral to see. Again, it's another slow burn. You
Hmm.
can get away with not having sex today, but if you don't have sex today for 100 days, that's a long time. That's almost 4 months. And then you look back and you're thinking,
I'm
"Oh,
a
now you are
roommate.
my
Now
friend."
you're my friend.
I mean,
Yeah.
the term quickie was invented for a reason here, people. Use it. Don't wear underwear. Pull up the skirt. Go in a closet. Whatever you need to do, because that's what
PSA,
makes it
go have a
fun.
quickie.
Go have a quickie, or at least talk about it,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, I want to bang you in the closet right now. Like,
Or
well, shit.
figure out, because everybody has different sexual preferences and things that work
Correct.
for them, right? And maybe you're in like a lull. Maybe you've been doing the same, switch it up. Maybe you need a date night. Maybe you're somebody that like needs like a nice text throughout the day and like a little bit more of a warm up, like whatever it is. It leads back to communication.
Right.
You got to communicate what your sexual needs are. But I can tell you, if you're not having sex and you're married and it's been a long time, or you're living together, or you're dating, so there's other stuff going on, and you got to deal with it, or else the relationship will end.
Absolutely. So I don't know if I think people know this, but maybe they don't. So I'm going to say it anyway. The body knows.
Yeah, the
Let's
body
just
totally knows.
bring it back to going on a date with someone.
Yeah.
When you're sitting next to someone, can you identify, I want him to hold my hand or I don't want to hold my
Like,
hand?
that feeling where like you get like the butterflies and it's a little racy. I just watched It Ends With Us. That movie gives you all the feels.
Love
Oh my
that.
gosh, it's so good. And there's like a lot of sexual tension in it. So maybe watch that. Maybe watch that movie to get things going. But no, like that, you're right. Like the body,
You know if you're sexually
like you're like,
interested
oh,
in
I want him
someone.
to like touch my knee or
Totally.
like rub my shoulder, like just
Totally.
touch me.
Yes. And if you have to like convince yourself, like, well, let's try and have sex with him to see if I like him. That's a no.
No,
If it's not a
don't
hell
have
no,
sex with him.
it's a, yeah, exactly.
Don't, if that,
Don't waste your number.
if we're talking to you, if that is what you're feeling and you've been talking to somebody and you're just like, oh, I'm just not that attracted, or I just can't see myself getting physical, don't do it. That's not the right person.
Correct. And it's okay to say no. Part of this is being honest with yourself. And don't be afraid to communicate. Like you said, your sexual needs, there is a taboo to talking about
Yeah.
sex. I think, like, I have certain girlfriends I talk about sex with, and I have certain girlfriends who will not go there. Same with like changing. I have certain girlfriends who will change right in front of me,
Yeah.
and other girlfriends who like need to be 5 rooms away, And it's just a preference, and it's comfort.
And that's fine.
It's comfort. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're going to be having sexual encounters with that person, you
Yeah.
need to be able to talk about
Yeah.
it.
If you're not talking to your friends about sex, you need to be talking about the person you're having sex with about sex
Correct. There needs to
at a
be,
minimum.
there needs to be something.
But also, and this is just food for thought, if you are listening to this and you're like, oh, that's me, I'm the friend that wants to be 5 rooms away, or I'm the friend that doesn't want to talk about my sex life, maybe just sit and ask yourself, like, why? Because there could be some like block or subconscious belief around sex that is limiting your experience with intimacy with your partner.
And I'm just going to go there. If there's something that happened in your childhood or even as an adult,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
That's something that needs to be resolved altogether. And in order for sex to feel healthy and normal, it needs to be, you have to work through that. Otherwise, sex will always be an arm's length distance. It's not going to be ever a good, fun, pleasant experience that you look forward to or you miss if you haven't done it in a few days. Like we're not really talking about that, but it needs to be said. Like, we encourage you to go get help, go talk to somebody, find somebody you trust and start to heal that, because sex is a fun, beautiful thing.
And it is something that's so cool to be able to do with someone you deeply love.
Yeah. And care about, and who loves you back. And if you have like a weird hair or, like you just came home from the gym, like there's nothing weird about it. They're like, damn, I love you even more when you come home from the gym. Like that. Some people are like that, like there's just a lot there. There's a lot.
And like, hate to beat a dead horse, but it goes back to the self-worth thing. It's working on you. You got to work on it. Like, don't expect your partner, significant other, spouse to make sex good. Like, if you're not trying and you're not putting in the work, that's not fair to put it all on the other person.
Oh, totally. You know what? That's funny you say that. Girls have a deeply ingrained belief that they shouldn't have to initiate. Dude, a person is a person. They want to feel initiated and loved and like they're hot and you turn them on.
Just like you, like we want that. They want, like, men want that too.
Absolutely.
And so maybe go initiate some sex tonight.
Correct. Go try it
today. A quickie, a lunchy.
A quickie. Let's do it. Okay. So the reason why part of our title is how to continue falling in love with your significant other is because we just want to give you some action items that you can take away today. My personal favorite, which I have never experienced this before, I hope my boyfriend doesn't shoot me. We actually fall asleep holding hands every night.
Oh yeah, my husband and I are always touching.
You guys do that? Okay, we're always touching.
He was out of town recently, and I'm like, I did not sleep well, like, because I do okay when I travel, but he doesn't travel a lot. I'm more the traveler, and we have to be touching. I love it.
It makes a difference throughout the day. You slap a butt, you give a kiss, you give a hug, like whatever it is. We call it harassing in our house. Like we always are harassing each other. There's always something that's doing something, and it's like, but we laugh about it. And so the touching is huge. I would like to say that. Another good one is to stop when he or she comes through the door.
Yeah, and say hello, greet them.
Give them your undivided attention. I'm not saying an hour. I'm not saying 20 minutes. I'm saying, hey,
put your phone down.
Totally.
Give the hug.
Absolutely. And if you're on a call, mute yourself, go in and I'm on a call. I just want to say hi, do something, give them a kiss and go back to what you were doing. As long as you're not on camera, that's maybe the only exception.
Yeah.
But like, are 3 minutes of your day, 20 seconds of your day?
It's just those little things stack up and they mean so much. And I think too, like, especially people who have been in a relationship for a really long time, maybe you're feeling frustrated because you're like, my spouse isn't, doing these things that we're talking about here. Well, are you?
Correct.
Ask yourself, are you? Because it's an energy match. And if you're needing more of that or you're asked, you also need to be willing to reciprocate those things. And really, like, I love the 5 love languages. It's a really great starting point. Also, like, understanding human design or the Kobe are really great tools to like get to understand how one another ticks. And again, back to communication, saying like, hey, these are the things that make me feel loved. Like, of that list we just gave you, what are some that you were like, nodding your head, saying in your car or on your walk, and share those with your significant other so that they can give them to you. But you also then ask them, what could I be doing for you?
Because we
to
all
make
operate
you feel loved
out of our own lens. So if
100.
if my love languages are, which they are, mine's time, right?
Mhm.
That's the most thing you could do for me. But yours are services, because services or gifts are at the bottom of my personal list.
Yeah.
I would never love you in that way. I'm going to love you the way I feel loved. And we all do that. So to ask what it is makes a
Huge.
huge change in even my
Well, and
friendships.
like to be specific, because my husband and I, we read this like years and years ago. We did this early on in our relationship, and my number one is acts of service.
Okay.
And so he's like, he thought it was like grandiose, right? Like he
He's
was
like,
just
let me
like,
get you a
shit,
helicopter.
like, how am I ever going to do this? Right. And I'm like, no, it's like, you see the oil change light, come on in my car, go get my oil changed.
Right.
Or the trash is full, take the trash out. Like little things where you're noticing like this would help her day run more smooth. And then the secondary is physical touch, right? So it's like if I'm not getting those hugs or those kisses, I'm like, what's going on?
Right. But those might not be his.
Oh yeah, but that's the
Are
thing
they?
is his is definitely his number one is physical touch, so that
Most
works
men.
out. Yeah,
That's usually for most men. If
yeah,
girls, you're listening.
yeah, typical.
Even when they're mad, they're like, hold my fucking hand.
Yeah, right. So yeah, but that like to your point, it's through our own lens. Like we give how we want to receive it, and that's why it's important to also ask like, how do you like to receive love? And some people have never been asked that before, so they're like, let me think about it.
Yes.
And that's a great starting point for your communication.
And the test is free. The 5 love languages test is free. It's 30 questions, so go
Yeah.
take it. I have like saying I love you frequently and
Mhm.
not out of automation,
Yeah.
out of feeling it in the moment because you want to.
Mhm.
That's huge.
Yep.
Because everybody says, bye, I love you, when I get off the phone. That doesn't mean anything. That sounds meh. That sounds like, all right, see ya. Like I could be talking to anybody. But when it's like a quick extra oomph and there's some gumption in that I love you, you know it's for their significant other if you're listening or eavesdropping.
Well, and I think too, like some people, grew up in homes where like parents didn't say that.
Mhm.
So again, sit with it, understand, but like it feels good to hear I love you from the
Mhm.
person you love.
Mhm.
Feels good.
Yeah, it feels really good. And it feels good to say it because again, our episode about giving compliments, it's the same thing. Like to know that your words are impacting someone so profoundly
Yeah.
and especially if you love them and care about them, like you just want to keep making them feel good. And ironically, they do the same thing for you. So it just becomes like this this cycle of just love that's like spewing out everywhere. And it's almost like you can become that obnoxious couple, even though maybe you didn't start like that, because there's so much love between you guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like the cliche girl this episode. Like what goes around comes around.
Totally.
But it's true.
It's true. Did we say this? I can't remember if we did. I think I just mentioned it in the beginning. Changing your friend group is a huge piece because the friends who only bond over talking shit about their significant others, yeah, that shit. And I'm also going to add watching Housewives.
Mm-hmm.
That will ruin your relationship. There are studies, I do not have a percentage, but I have read, there are studies that if you watch that regularly, your relationship declines. And the girls I know who watch it, are you going to disagree?
Yeah, because we watch it sometimes together. We think it's hysterical.
Okay, well, that's not the mindset that most people look at it with. So I feel like you're maybe the unicorn
I'm an
here.
anomaly.
You're the unicorn. But yeah, most people who watch it, who are already in unhappy relationships, who aren't having sex with their husbands, who maybe feel a little unhealthy, that's just perpetuating, yeah, I am supposed to hate you.
Well, I think that it goes back to, okay, one of the best pieces of advice I got when we got married was to not befriend or remain friends with people who have an unhealthy marriage.
Woo! That's also a gold nugget.
It's always been in the back of my mind. And it's not to say that like, that doesn't mean like if someone's going through a hard time that you disown them and you stop being friends with them. So I want to be clear about that. But if it's this consistent thing where the either spouse is constantly bashing the other one, or you notice like how they're behaving when you're together, they're always fighting, they're not having sex, and it's not just a isolated incident or a little blip in time. It's like it's happening all the time. You want to reevaluate it because it's true. Like the people you spend the most time with, you become like. And also, you don't want, like, let's say there's a cheating thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want your man to go out with that guy and go have drinks and he's open to cheating on his wife and now he's going to encourage poor behavior around him, or vice versa. The wife is a cheater and she's hanging out. Your wife's going out for girls' nights with her and she's down to cheat on her husband and attract male attention when she's married. that isn't good, and that is going to rub off on you even if you have a really solid foundation. Not like the first time or the second time, but if it's an ongoing issue, it's time to reevaluate.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think people, because it is such a slow burn, there's wow, that's like a common theme with all this. It just ropes you in.
Yeah.
And it ropes you in slowly because almost it's like, I saw that you got away with it. If you have that mischievous mind, or maybe you're not happy, what can I get away with? And that's where the tipping point comes in. And now all of a sudden you're on the side with the cheater.
Yeah. Well,
And
and it's just the same thing as like leveling up in business, right?
Yeah.
You go around people that you aspire to be like or that are doing better. It's the same concept with relationships. You're looking for that person that you're like, I love what they have. I want to be around that because I want to emulate that in my relationship.
When I was single, I could think of 2 couples out of everyone I knew, and this is not even that long ago.
Yeah.
That I was like, I want my relationship to be like theirs. And one of them, one of the couples, but one of the things I loved about it was I had always been around couples that when we go out to drink, they like word
Daggers.
steamroll over each other. Like, that's not how the story went. Like, whoa, okay, whatever. Just let them tell the fucking story. Meanwhile, these 2 couples, as the drunker they got, they'd be like, oh my God, you have to listen. He is such a good storyteller. I can't even do it justice. Like, go ahead, babe. You got to tell. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
The difference.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that is love and respect and kindness. And like, that's how they are, because when you're drunk, there's the truth serum, right?
Yep.
So you've just got such a good example in front of you. How many couples can you think of that you would love for your relationship to be like that? Not celebrities.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have a pretty solid group of like couple friends now, but that wasn't always the case. Like we had to really search and look for it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So there you go.
Yeah. And we are both on the same page. Like we talked about that advice. It's something, we kind of like we do our goals every year. So we have like a fun little thing we do in December to plan for the next year. And like one of the things we focus on is like, how are we doing in our marriage? Like, is there anything you need? Is there anything I need? Is there, we have like this, and it's like something we look forward to. And it's, we have checkpoints obviously throughout the year, but I mean, we've done a really good job of finding healthy couples.
But you are also 2 willing participants who are ambitious, who want to be better, who want to provide a healthy, stable, great upbringing for your children. Like you guys are on the same page.
100.
And
like if you asked me that question even like 3 years ago, I would be like 1 or 2.
Right. Right. And it took time. Look at it. It took you a year or 2.
It's intentional.
Absolutely.
And that's not to say that, and again, I want to be clear. It doesn't mean you have to throw away friendships, right?
Correct.
With people who aren't doing well. But just being mindful of it on like, I don't want that to rub off on us. Or like, I didn't like the way so-and-so spoke to so-and-so at dinner. Like, I don't want that to ever be us. Even like those little things are great.
And the fact that you talk about it afterwards is huge. Like, do you guys understand? Like, the theme just comes through it all.
I mean, communication really is the path to solve basically any of the negative points for sure. Yeah.
I do want to throw out a book because I love books. So How to Build Your Empire by Elena Cardone.
Oh, such a good one.
Have you read it? She has some good advice in there. There is stuff about sex, and there's just a way that you command your empire. You're the queen, he's the king. And when you hear somebody else talk about it, it just totally reframes everything in your head. And you can now go apply, not everything, pick and choose, start with one, and start to adapt those things into your life and just notice. The other downfall is that if you are the person who wants the change and then there's a person who doesn't,
you're not the right person.
Yeah, you're going to be hitting heads. I've had that. I have a good example, but he made fun of me for when I was trying to communicate. And I was like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, bye-bye.
And I was just like, okay, well, you just like started the ravel of the breakup. So thank you so much. So, all right, we are going to end with this. Building a healthy, happy relationship isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, intentional, and willing to grow together. Relationships thrive when there's open communication, mutual respect, and a genuine effort to support each other's dreams and challenges. It's those small, everyday acts of kindness, empathy, and understanding that build a solid foundation for love to flourish. Remember, no relationship is without its challenges, but when you approach them as a team with patience and compassion, they can actually bring you closer together. Every relationship is unique, so take the time to discover what works best for you. Whether it's prioritizing date nights, setting healthy relationship boundaries, or just being a great listener, it's all about showing up for each other and creating a partnership where both of you can truly give and feel unconditional love.
Amen. All right, hotties, if you found this episode helpful, please share it with your friends. Reach out to us, give us feedback. We are here to serve you, and we thank you for listening.
Adios.